All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, each and every one of you. I'm glad you're with us today. My name's Bob Stolz, and I'm the CEO team leader of Keller Williams Santa Clara Valley. Today, we're going to be looking through an interesting class on practical project management at an advanced level. I did create and teach an earlier class, which is on our YouTube channel, which you might want to go out and check on. It's very interesting. It takes you through the fundamentals of project management and a very simple technique to do project management on a reasonably complicated project as part of the material and part of the process examples that are walked through in the class itself. So feel free to go back and look at that. It's not a prerequisite for this class. This class being advanced really is going to go after a different angle. There are a lot of techniques in project management, different ways that you can choose to approach a problem of doing a very complicated mid to long-term type activity and be able to do it efficiently and get the result that you want. So I want us to take a look at what we are trying to accomplish. We want to get more done and we want to do it better. So we're really going to be looking at this from a judgment and criteria standpoint of knowing how to approach a project given its characteristics. That means we have to figure out what the project looks like, how it's going to pan out, what its characteristics are. Is it long, short? Has it got a lot of detail, or is it a big sweeping project that has only large steps? Is it something that we need to get done that's hypercritical, only over a few days? Or is it something that's going to take 3 months, 6 months to accomplish? Doing this kind of an analysis up front and getting very comfortable with the criteria, and also getting very used to thinking this way, making it part of who you are and how you run your business as a real estate agent or as a real estate agent team is going to be really important. There's an awful lot of writing out there on the subject of project management that tends to try and reduce this all to just being a science. It's like running mathematical equations, and it's just not. I've done large project offices at Google, at Cisco, at Facebook. I've been the director of project office, and I've learned through my years' experience, not to boast about what I've done in the past, but just it gave me a perspective and an experience that a lot of real estate agents may not have had the benefit of. And what it's taught me is that in real estate, like in technology, the real thing you have to develop is the ability to approach it not only as a science, but as an art. There is a non-analytical, intuitive portion of this, which is really, really important in order to be able to make quick, efficient judgments about how to proceed and how to analyze a given project and then move it forward in a very clean, efficient way. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the things we're trying to accomplish. So all focus is on getting things done. Project management is not an end unto itself. And what you'll find with a lot of software project management applications, they advertise how you can use this for everything, for big things, for little things, and everything in between. And you can organize your family's supply run for the grocery store, and you can organize the building of a spaceship in the same system. It just doesn't work that way. And if you do try to work it that way, you'll end up massively inefficient depending on which tool and which scenario that tool is optimized for. So let's start by agreeing together that the real goal of project management, when we approach it as an advanced subject, is about getting things done. It's not an end unto itself. Okay, the second thing I want us to take a look at is does not waste time with excessive complexity. Overhead is really, really important. You don't want to engage on a regular basis in any process that is more than the bare minimum you need to get the desired result. That's a really important statement. You want the bare minimum to get the desired result. Now, the reason for that is overhead doesn't push your business forward. When you're doing extra administrative thing and they eat up seconds, which turn into minutes, which turn into hours, which turn into half days, you're losing productive time. So we have to realize as we approach the problem of project management in an advanced state, we have to learn how to do it so that it doesn't waste time with anything extra. So erasing unneeded complexity is an important part of project management and the judgment of how to do it. The next piece is minimizing friction in the work and in the contributors. I may be dating myself. I'm not sure if these devices even exist anymore. There used to be something called a slip and slide. And a slip and slide is a long piece of plastic, probably 50 feet long. And it's maybe 5 feet wide. And you hook it up to a hose. And you put it out on a grass lawn. And you turn the hose on. And it has little holes all over the upper side. And it brings water up to the surface of the plastic. And then when you're a kid, what you do is you run at the end of it, and then you jump and you do a Superman or Superwoman and slide down that thing, and you can just literally surf on your stomach or on your back all 50 feet until you're at the other end. It's really fun when you're a kid. Nowadays, it just basically would represent a trip for me to the chiropractor. But when you're a kid, it looks like great fun. The problem with a lot of projects is the mechanism and the tools that they use are like throwing gravel onto that slip and slide. Imagine what would happen if you ran at a slip and slide that's supposed to, on a smooth film of water and plastic, allow you to safely slide to the other end, if suddenly it's covered with 5 or 6 handfuls of sharp gravel. That would become something right out of a B-rated horror movie. So we need to minimize friction in the system. And the way you do it is you take a careful look at the workers and the contribution for what has to be done and the work at hand, and you figure out how to make a mix. So realize that I haven't given you a single technique yet. What I'm doing is building the case for why you need to then take a look at the techniques we're going to learn in a couple of minutes. The next one is that it drives productivity rather than slowing it. You really need something which helps you move faster, not something that is an extra step that makes you move slower. So for every minute you spend project managing something, it better give you at least 2 minutes more productive time, or it's not worth the effort. It's really important to keep that in the back of your mind so that your productivity goes up, not down. The next is to improve the skill set in estimating project techniques and organizing them for the future. So I'm going to give you several different ways to do this, different scales and techniques that you can mix and match. And these will help you with a little bit of practice to always be able to pick the right one and get the maximum output for the minimum input from a project management standpoint. Now, the last point I put here in bright red, what's the point of all of this, is to get things done, get them done better, because it drives the highest level of client service. This is the priority in project management. Everything else is a distant 5th or 6th. The first 4 have got to be the same thing, and that is drive client service, drive client experience. More and more, since I spend a lot of time speaking to agents who are not part of my particular brokerage here at Keller Williams, but belong to other brokerages all across Santa Clara County, and almost all of those brokerages are national. So when I look at it and I talk to different agents, one of the things I realize is the differentiator for the seller and the buyer is only their client service. That's really important. You can make arguments about this is a cheaper way to do it or that's a more expensive way to do it. And if you want to know some awesome ways to talk about how to share your value and show your value for commission against discount brokers and things like that, go out on our website. Vet Peterson taught a fantastic class on that subject. So I'm not going to delve deeply into that one. It's so beautifully handled there. So what I want us to do is agree together that the priority is client service. And everything we do in project management is about client service. Okay? Questions on that? Olivia, do we have anything? Anybody in chat?
1 second. We have something from Grace. She asks, if I want to kick off my Facebook and KW command, how do I get it started and how do I manage it? Or if I want to invest my investment project.
Excellent. Those are fantastic questions. They're a great segue into the next slides and what I'm going to be showing. And I will say to Grace or anybody on this call, I'm available to you. I spent a good 20 plus years of my life living, breathing, eating project management. This is something that literally exudes from my pores because I've done it so long. And I'm happy to help you individually also get things set up. So good question, Grace. Let's try and handle it in the next few slides. Are there any others, Olivia? Okay, I'm going to say no since I'm not hearing anything. Okay. Okay. Project review, real estate agents and time. Review, we're going to go back over what some of the types of project are that we covered at length in the first class. The first type of project you're going to run across is something I'm going to call a sequenced list. It's usually single person. It could be shared, but it's usually single person. And it can be in real estate, something like a listing project. Put together, it's basically a checklist of everything you need to do when you start into a listing agreement or when you're engaging with a buyer to put together a buyer's agreement. Those are all sequenced lists, and there are all kinds of templates out there. We in the office have at least 2 or 3 different versions of this, and they are readily available. An inspection project might be another sequenced list where you've got a bunch of inspections and you're simply going to make a list of who the inspectors are and the inspection companies. You're going to schedule them out and get them on. It's just a list end to end. Customer care project might include that. So what kinds of things can you do post-transaction? So are you going to do something nice for your buyer who has now successfully completed the transaction or for the seller who has successfully completed the transaction? Those are nice checklists. Send a card, bring a gift, ask for other leads. Those kinds of lists are good to have so we don't leave steps out. But they are basically projects which fall into the category of sequenced lists. In your personal lives, what would those be? Grocery store runs are sequenced lists. Things to do after work when you pick up the kids and between there and bedtime is frequently a sequenced list, even though it may involve more than one person. So that's the first kind. They're small, they're easy to look at, and they're just basically a list of things to do. The second one is a coordinated effort. This is more of a team type project. And we're differentiating this by saying you have to review and scrub team contact databases. That might be a good one. So you've got a team, you've got a database of contacts, and a lot of them are out of date, or they needed added information, and you decide as a team to split it up and go after it. That's a good one to use as a coordinated effort type project. Or a farming project is a long-term, fairly active project where you're coordinating the efforts of a team, whether it's just your real estate team or a combination of the team and various administrative and support personnel in your brokerage office. So these are some of the types of projects you're going to run into. Ones that I'm working on right now include agent development, where we bring in new agents, and typically it's sink or swim. I've spent a lot of time talking to people who've been in real estate their entire lives. And as some of you know, this is new for me. I come out of high tech. And there is a basic philosophy of turn the crank. You bring them in the front door knowing you're going to lose more than half of them out the back door when they're not successful. So trying to interrupt that and get agents to their first transaction is a major focus for myself and for my leadership team here currently. And it is a coordinated effort. It has many facets and many participants. Another one might be in your own real estate team, something like a financial forecast and strategy. That requires multiple components. There's a mathematical formula, there's a logical formula, there's a prioritization, and those would fall nicely into a larger project, which we're going to call some sort of coordinated effort. Okay, questions? Anyone?
There's nothing in the chat.
All right, thank you. Then I'll press on. All right.
Bob,
yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the farming it become a coordinated effort. I thought farm could be a sequence one.
A farm is a sequence one. Very good. That's right. The difference is probably with farming, Grace, would you ever employ other people besides yourself in the sequence?
I see.
And your answer could be either way, Grace. You may say to me, well, Bob, I'm the only one that's going to farm my area. So yeah, it's all me. In which case, you're right, Grace. It could very easily be just a sequenced list. If it involved getting marketing materials or having outside help with mailing or a coordinated effort of farming within the office, then it would be more of a coordinated type project. Does that make sense?
Okay, I got it.
Okay, that was a great question. Very good question. All right, if there aren't any others, I'll go ahead and move forward with this about fallacies. And these are ways of thinking you want to avoid from day one. And the first one is, the more project management techniques we apply, the better the outcome. No, that's exactly wrong. And every company that sells project management software, from Microsoft, who sells MS Project, to dozens and dozens of like First Monday, that's one of the fairly popular ones right now, all are telling you that, oh, you just use this and it will be the ultimate thing, and that's what you really need. If you apply more of this, the outcome will be better. The answer is actually no, it won't be. Well, the real answer you want here to combat the fallacy of more is better is the minimum to get to your desired output is the right amount. Minimum overhead to hit your goal of your output. So this is a good example for those of us who may struggle through life with the burden of a classical education. There's an old English sonetist poet named Chaucer. And Chaucer wrote in Middle English, and it's brutal to read. And by the time I could figure out, back when I was in school, what some of it meant, I kind of lost the purpose of why was I reading this. That's one way to approach project management. It's complicated, it's big, it uses fancy language, and that's going to make the outcome better. Maybe not. Then let's contrast that with a poet from the middle of the 20th century who is E.E. Cummings, who wrote my absolute favorite poem of all times. It has 4 words and it has 4 lines. This is the poem. People, pool, e-plop, cool. Perfect poem. I love it. It brings everything up about a poem about swimming. People, pool, e-plop, cool. Everybody gets cool. They jump in the water. E.E. Cummings had what it took to be a project manager. I don't know if he ever did or not, but he certainly had it with that kind of an approach, minimum approach. Second fallacy is we should execute every project the same methodology and process. This is like hat sizes. We all know that anytime you vary from the norm, you have problems in our society. So if your head is more, if you're a man, and your head is larger in diameter than 6 7/8, you're gonna have trouble getting a hat. Either the hat's gonna be too big and it's gonna fall down over your ears and look really silly, or it's gonna be so small that you would wear it up on top and it wouldn't even fit over the sides of your head. One project management methodology does not fit all sizes. We've got to get to the part about what does the criteria look like for choosing the methodology. The next fallacy, I should manage project manage myself, just like I manage major efforts on my team. Nope, I'm going to argue that you need to differentiate between your own project management and your team's project management for efficiency's sake. And that's why. So for instance, let me use this as an example. For those who are travelers, my trip to work in the morning is entirely different project than traveling to Mykonos for a 1-month vacation. Hugely different. Even though I'm traveling in both cases, one particular way to manage is not the same to manage for myself as managing a major project, where maybe it's not just me going to Mykonos, it might be my kids, their significant others, stuff like that. So we're going to differentiate how we manage ourselves. The next one is, I haven't got time for all this process, it's ridiculous. That's like trying to learn to fly and saying to the flight instructor, I've already been through ground school. I know what these controls do. I don't need to waste my time with this. Yeah, actually you do. For those of us who have learned to fly in life, you'll very quickly understand the analogy. There's a massive difference between what you read in a book and getting the feel for actually flying an aircraft. Same thing is true of project management. Learning the basics and then applying it are a completely different level of feel and understanding. Okay, the next one is, if I took time to project management, all the things I do in a day, I would not be able to sleep. And I've heard this one a lot. I don't have time for project management, I just got to get things done. Yeah, well, my experience with it is something different. I would say if I don't project management, I won't be able to sleep. Now, I don't know about you, but when I don't have proper lists made and my projects are not spelled out on paper so that I know what the next steps are for tomorrow, the next day, the next day, for next week, next month, I can't sleep because I sit there at night, I play this stuff over in my brain, and all of a sudden I realize, oh no, I forgot to add the step in about getting the foundation inspected. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you have to get up and write it down. And then the next morning, you have to remember and find it where you wrote it down. So if you want to sleep, project management, I guarantee your sleep will go better when you're project managing effectively than when you're not. The last fallacy to avoid is we should all just do our own thing and meet at the finish line, whenever that is. Yeah, doing your own thing basically never coordinates. Imagine what it would be like if you were watching a rowing race like they do on the rivers, the scull racing, they call that. Tiny, skinny boats with 4 or more people, and they're super, super long and thin, and they have to all move exactly together, or they bump oars and the whole thing ends up sinking. So to get to the finish line, the best thing to do is coordinate the effort. Questions? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so I'm going to move forward. Okay, sort it out as a project. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Deciding on how to proceed by taking a look at the project. Non-traditional approach is, how much do I need to keep this on the top of my mind? Today, this week, and this month. Really important. How much does this need to stay right here so you're thinking about it? At what level do you need to do that every day? That's part of how we're going to determine which way to approach. And that's never part of a class in how do you implement project management. The second one is your effort highly serial or is it highly parallel? And the best example I can think of this is a serial project is taking a toothpick and combing your hair with a toothpick. Each time the comb piece is going to go through your hair, that toothpick only separates one line. And then you go back and you separate the next line. That is a serial activity. One follows another, follows another, follows another. And a comb is basically a parallel effort where you have all kinds of little toothpicks in a row and you drag it through your hair and it does a whole bunch of things simultaneously. So one of the keys is the project I'm thinking about right now that I have to figure out how to manage serial or is it mainly parallel? And that is a major flip point on which way to go with it. Serial projects tend to run as a list. Parallel projects need to run more as a formal project. And we'll talk about waterfall and agile as the two dynamic forms of project management most often used in all industry right now. The next one is interdependencies, controllable or uncontrollable. So things you don't want to include in your project are a lot of dependency to move forward based on uncontrollable components. So for instance, if I'm going to create marketing materials and all of the creation of that marketing materials is controllable. When I get together with the photographer, when I get together with the marketing person for the art and the logos and the signage and all of that, that's all very controllable. What is less controllable? Something that's less controllable or uncontrollable is the amount of time it takes to ship from the printer that I want to use in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Santa Clara, California. If I pay for three-day delivery, then that's, if it goes late, there's nothing really I can do about it. It's not controllable. It's out of my hands. So those are going to create some pauses that you can try to help with, but they'll be uncontrollable, and you just need to realize that. And then blockers, are they static or dynamic? So a static blocker is a shipping delay. A dynamic blocker would be something like variable dependent efforts. Like someone produces something for you, which then you have to take, do something to, hand it to other people who are then going to do more activities on that same thing. So preparing your marketing materials are a good example of that. It's a highly dynamic environment versus a static environment where you're just doing something fairly simple and routine, it's repetitive, and you can predict it really well. Okay, so these are the things I'm telling you in advanced project management is a non-traditional way to approach the project so that you apply the right model. It's really important that you have these in the top of your mind when you create the project methodology you're going to use. So, and the first and foremost is, how much does this need to stay on the top of my mind? I have some near-term complicated projects I'm working right now. Some of them are really complicated. They're very personal. They're very dependent upon talking to multiple people, my agents, and getting their feedback, getting their concurrence. And it is just a nightmare from a project standpoint. And it's one that is going to have to be approached very carefully and kept on top of my mind every day. So I've chosen a way to do it, and I'll tell you in a little while how that is. Versus something that I just need to get done, like update my statistics for regional based on our office statistics every day. That's easy. That's a serial activity, and it's highly recursive. Okay, questions in this section? We're almost to the really good part, which is now that you have the judgment of knowing how to choose, what to choose. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so let's move on. Okay, make a decision.
Hey, Bob, I have a question.
Yeah, jump on, Maureen.
Well, you know, I find that I've had a couple people here, and not having the office where we're all there, it's sort of hard, or finding I have a transaction coordinator, and you know, my husband's a contractor, so he does all those things, but what I need is somebody that looks at what I have, but not having somebody in the office is hard, so telling them over the phone is pretty hard. Right. And so how do you pick how you're training people and what to give them? Because otherwise I feel like that process, I have a hard time when somebody's not full-time or it's not their full job, just saying, okay, we need to sit down and do this, because then it doesn't get done. So, okay, I got to do that. But it's, you know, you get busy. I have to go to another, like my listing, and then the time goes by. So how do you pick the part when you're training them and how to give them what?
That's a great,
too much.
Yep, great question, Maureen. Let me ask a couple of questions. What would you say the percentage is of repetitiveness in these contract coordination? In other words, does it suit itself to a template?
The research is the hard part, is they can't get into my system for the people that like it. The other people aren't good at, they're good at like looking up on, maybe looking on Paragon, but they don't want to do the filing. Nobody wants to do the nitty gritty part, and the person that can do it can't get into my system. So I'm having a location challenge. You know, they're not here to start. They need to be here 3 months to start to figure out the process of the research. So I end up having to go back to organize what I need help with. And then after I teach them, but it's just hard at long distance, I think. I need like somebody here, and finding somebody that wants to do it. I have a person that can do it part-time, and I'd like him to train him. Like Hannah's boyfriend, for example, he's good at it. He's good at writing code, and he's looking for his other job, but he can do it. It's just not being here, he doesn't get it, and Hannah does. So it's really finding a person that can do that in the long distance. It's really hard teaching somebody to research like these commercial properties in different places.
That makes total sense. So interestingly, you've actually probably got a project within a project. So one project is transaction coordination and all the steps that goes through. And the other project is actually, how do you find and create resources? So there's a number of possibilities here. One of the first is to ask you, do you have a way that you can explore multiple people who maybe you don't know yet, or to find multiple people you don't know yet, to create a wide parallel resource set? So you've maybe got 2 or 3. How would you go about finding 5 more who could do that job?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know me. That's
right.
Send on over.
Okay, so there's one of them, finding. I realize that there is, to some extent, that's a statement of the obvious, but at the same time, that's the crux of the problem. It's a resource issue. The second part of the problem is training. So access is something you're going to have to work out with system administration. It has a technical IT and permissions component, which is...
You can't. CoStar won't let you. You just can't. You have to literally be in the same room, and they have to use your computer.
Okay. Yeah, so then what you're going to have to do is figure out how to download or dump information.
Well, then I'm doing the work is the problem.
Okay, if you dump it and don't read it and you hand it to somebody else, would that be useful?
And CoStar, you have to create reports. So you have to figure out what report you want, which takes time for each one. So sometimes one offers one property. So you can do it. And I've done that. Like I scanned it and sent it all to him and he did put them in. So we did do that part.
Okay.
I just have to download all of them and send it to him and then double check that he's gotten it. So that
Sure.
does take time and I can do that. Yeah, that's what I did before. It's just
Is
more.
there, okay, that's a good idea. Is there a prohibition to having somebody else log in with your credentials?
Oh yeah, well the whole
Okay.
firm, just so you know, all 190 people would have to join CoStar and it would be phenomenally expensive. So if they
Yeah.
catch you, we're in trouble.
Okay, so I'm not suggesting we do anything unethical or illegal. That's why I asked the question instead of making a suggestion.
Yeah, no.
So
I realize that. I don't think you understand what Tam and everybody else is under with CoStar. We can't really get around it. It's very, they've made it, it doesn't match our program. We have team leaders and
Yep.
we don't have brokers and they go by brokers. And so if you're a Colliers that goes across the United States, you get a great deal, but franchises have a very challenging time.
yes, that makes sense. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be a easy solution to this unless you can find a resource that has native CoStar access.
You?
Right?
Yeah, we can work on that.
I don't know how we would solve that easily within the office, but if we have an extra license, maybe we can
10.
assign it.
I think
Pardon?
we have 10.
Yeah, I think we do have some extra. So if there is a legal and ethical way to assign that to another individual who then can do the research for you, that might be a good solution in the near term.
That would be wonderful. I'd be ecstatic if I could do that. And, that would be really good.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's add that to your list of things to do.
Uh-huh.
And let's run this by our office expertise here, our MCA. And let's see if there's something like that we can do, okay? And then we can project manage that individual, perhaps, or incentivize them to be able to supply that resource for you and maybe for others as well.
Yeah.
Make sense?
And he's happy with what I was paying him an hour. Now, the other person that's working for Dennis thinks he knows what he's doing and he doesn't. And he wanted $35 an hour. And it's basically what an agent would have to learn on their own to be an agent. So that wasn't working well. I talked to Mark about it. So, and then I have some other people, but it's just hard to get the resource people that want to work in that field.
That makes sense. So the other way to look at this from a programmatic standpoint, Maureen, is to, if you have skills that only you can do, and not just you personally, I mean, anybody who's considering a project, then what you try to do is you offload the other things you do that other people can do in order to give you more time to do the things that they can't.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh no, I'd love somebody to file. So that's why I would love anybody to do these. I just need to find the people.
Yeah, and that's something. Let's take this up after the class the next time I see you, or a time that's convenient for you.
Yeah, we'll set it up.
This is an interesting little project management problem to solve, and it's also an interesting business problem. So let's work on this together in the coming weeks. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can go next week. I'm ready.
Awesome. I am too. Cool. Thanks, Maureen. That was a complicated problem. And it's what you're going to run across in a lot of project management. You'll hit some that it's really difficult to figure out how to decipher them. And in this case, it's heavily toward the real problem is the resource. It's not so much sequencing, it's the resource. So we'll get to that on the last slide as well. Okay?
Okay, great.
Very good. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank
that
you.
was a great question.
Well, thanks for the offer to help. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I always hate it when people tell me, oh yeah, you can go do this. And then it's like, okay. It's only good if somebody will help you with it. Okay, good. Okay, now we're down to the absolute nitty gritty. This is going to be, I'm going to show you stuff here that I'm showing you how I actually do work. And I've done this for so long that it's the way to get things done at the end of the day. Did I skip a slide? No, I didn't. Okay, good. Okay, here we go. The first one is my TTD list. My TTD list, I came up with that. I mean, now it's a thing, but back when I was literally in my 20s, working at Lockheed Missiles and Space as a program office project management / coordinator on these huge projects that were literally spacecraft. If I didn't create a things to do list and figure out how to manage it, I literally couldn't sleep at night. I wasn't kidding about that sleepless part, because I'd keep thinking of things that I needed to do and I forgot to do and this and that. So I came up with this. First thing, I do it every week. Notice up at the top, it's got month, date, and year. And that is for me, it's for every Monday morning. This is first thing I do right after I walk in the office. And I create this list by looking at the previous week's list, figuring out what I didn't do. And here's an important one if you're advanced, what I'm not gonna do. That's really important, because what happens is if you just carry forward things you didn't get done, the list gets longer and longer and longer and longer. Then you start having to put the stuff you're actually going to do up at the top, and then it gets longer and longer and longer. And what you end up with is with this tiny little set of things you're going to actually do, and this giant list of things you're actually in all reality not going to do. So it's really good to scrub these every Monday. I absolutely recommend that as a way to start through it. The next thing is come up with a way to incentivize yourself to come back to this list. Now, I don't know about you, but you know, when I was a little kid in grade school, the gold star on the paper meant a whole lot to me. Because if I got gold stars on those papers and came home, especially the one in behavior, since I was, okay, we'll say kind of active as a child, Mom gave me stuff. Like she'd bake cookies or bread or something I was hungry to eat, since it seems like I was hungry all the time. So lists are good for me. It motivates me to get it done. Here's my color coding. This is just done in Word. Anything green means good to go. I'm done with it. Anything in yellow means I've actually taken tangible action towards starting it, but it's not done yet. And then red means that something's horribly wrong and it's stopped. So those are all really important. To take the red ones, which means I'm not going to do them, something went wrong, I'm going to have to circle back and redefine it. The green ones, I get a little positive reinforcement every time I get to go and highlight the green because I got something done. And the yellow ones tell me, okay, it's not just here, I'm actually working on it. And that prevents me from getting to the end of the week without even starting a lot of the important things on my list. This is not in cardinal order. The most important thing is not on the top and the least important on the bottom. Why? Because that changes over the course of a week. This is just a core dump every Monday morning, looking at last week's work and thinking about this week's work, and I add to it throughout the course of the week. This is the list I was referring to earlier as a sequenced list. And this is a great way to personally manage your time so that you can get things done that are list-oriented as a project. Questions? Does this make sense?
Hey, Bob, I have a question.
Yes, Grace.
So you just write a to-do list on every Monday, right? Like
Yep.
we could write that kind of blend in with our 411 or 135. And this is like we need to finish this week. Is that right?
Yes, all of this is things that I try to finish week to week, but it could
Okay.
have something like that might stretch over. If I add it on Thursday, it might be something I carry over to the next week's list. Does that make sense?
So you're supposed to finish those 17 stuff, or you
I
can carry on?
Great question. 17 things I know I need to be working on this week.
I
And we'll
see.
see how far I get.
Okay.
So the ones that don't get done, like number 15, do numbers with prospects with their
Okay.
volume and their split and our split and cap. Okay, so I have some prospects I was working with, and
Okay.
this list, I may or may not get that done before Friday if I added that on Thursday. Does that make sense?
But do you have a numeral goal, like you say do 5 prospects this week, 5 prospect or 10 prospect with their volume or their split, but how do you know their split unless you talk to them, right?
That's a great question.
So
Absolutely.
I think if you add with a numeral goal, particularly we can transparent to our our prospect or our clients, right? Who's my seller, who's my buyer leads, and how many do I want it, do I need it to work on this week, right?
Yeah.
Of course, every one of us, we're supposed to know who's your A client you're working with, and sorry, A clients or B clients, your work on that. I think this is almost very, I pick up all those, try to apply to us and learn from it. All right.
Yeah.
For example, like I have a 10 prospect, seller prospects. And this week I got half of them or something. Can we put down something? I want to get half called and see where they are.
Yes. That's all excellent, Grace.
So they're serial, right? Because I'm trying to learn. This is very precious, and other agent can learn also. We share. And so this will be because we're in the lead business.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Lead, leverage, and listings. That's a 3 triangle as an agent. We all try, and same as the number of prospect of recruit. That will be similar like yours.
Yes.
Like what is the number and what I need to do to be minimal acceptance. I would say maybe how to start a new project. Like say, like what I ask you for KW Command or Facebook or farming, how can we apply and then just break. So I think there's something has to be before that. You analyze your goal, right?
Yep.
You need to know you have to you cannot skin the cat in one day, 1 week. You maybe have to do the part of it.
Yes, and Grace, let me jump in here with you.
Yes.
So that's an outstanding way to think and analyze through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is a project.
Yes.
And let me also apply that to this in that how do you develop this list and what level of detail do you put on it?
Yeah.
And my answer to that is going to be every single person who does this will do it a little differently.
Of course.
Because what this is, nobody else on my team has to understand what I write here. This is just for me. So I use a shorthand and may have a whole bunch of steps rolled into a single phrase or a single code word. And on other things, as you suggest, you definitely have to have the thought process, right? You have to think the whole thing from start to finish. And then the question for you, Grace, becomes the same question as it is for each of us as we approach that the situation, and that is, how much detail do I need to put here so that I get it done, but it's the minimum amount of extra work.
Yes.
Right answer for you is going to be different than the right answer for me and the right answer for Olivia or anyone else. And that's why it's so important to personalize your to-do list so that it reflects the way you work in the quickest, shortest hand you can do it. Make sense?
I'm sorry. I muted. I found out all of a sudden I have a phone call come in. I cannot answer because this is my dedicated time to learn new project management. So I think we need, before we get into able to come up with a things to do list, you need to analyze what need to be maybe more global project like 135 global goals. You need to focus, and then you can separate like we did many kind, right? Either 411 or 135, they all have separate
Right.
separate personal and business and financial. You separate. You have to do a pre thinking process,
Right.
and then you pick up, okay, I need to do now. Like right now is the perfect timing for 90 days before end of the year.
Right.
What is my 90-day? I want to do my business.
Yep.
I want to evaluate what work, what doesn't work, then decide what we will put it on things to do. I will be very interested to maybe work with you, work with at least 90 days goal first to begin, and so we can come up with things to do to make a difference of next year's.
Excellent. That's a great way to look at it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm also going to, Grace, use that, since it was so beautifully put, to segue into the next slide, which is a methodology for doing what you suggest. So there's 411, there's 135 that are done within Keller Williams, and those are great. If you want to take it to a much more complicated and larger scale, here's one methodology you can use. What we've got here is Agile. Agile is a way to get things done, realizing a very specific piece of the ingredient. When you do a project, it's hard to see all of the complication of the project from when you start to do the planning. So you can get the big picture of what you have to do, but not necessarily able to predict all the steps from beginning to end. And because of that, there is a certain logic to get as much of the overall high level figured out in advance, then break that down into sequential pieces as you start to accomplish the work and move from stage to stage, and then break those down into daily activities that you may want to keep track of to make progress every day towards your goal. So in the world of Agile project management, there are basically three components. The first one is epics, which is up here on the left. And epics are large things you have to get done. These are projects that last from a month to a year. It's going to be something which is complicated. It may involve, and probably will involve, more people than just yourself. And there is a methodology, which I won't teach here. If I teach another class later, I might actually give you a class on how to do the mechanics of this. But since this is a judgment class about how to approach a project, these epics you put up, and you can usually see them coming fairly long distance. As you move from left to right, the next marker says stories. Stories are breaking down those giant projects into 2-week periods. And those 2-week periods are what you're going to try to get done sequentially as the project progresses. And why 2 weeks? There's a whole long discussion on that. It's about how you form something called a sprint. and it's part of Agile, and it's beyond the scope of the class for now. Any of you who would like to and don't want to wait for a follow-on class are more than welcome to contact me by any media, and would be glad to help you walk through that. So stories are usually 2 days to 2 weeks in length and move you toward the larger goal of finishing the whole project, which we're going to call an epic. Then over on the actual whiteboard, we have something called swim lanes, where each of the resources involved in the project has their own lane to keep track of their work. And so myself and Stacy and Olivia and Locke, we are the management team here at Keller Williams Santa Clara Valley. And each of us will bring stories out of the backlog in the left into this sprint, which happens to be a 2-week period. And then we may break it down into multiple tasks and then carry that across the board to completion. And this is a way to keep some detailed planning ahead of yourself without actually planning an entire project from end to end for 6 months. Assuming that if you try to do that, you'll end up having to replan the last 2 months probably 3 or 4 times because of changes that happen along the way. So Agile says, don't waste your time. Define where it is you're trying to go, and then we keep just 2 weeks of advanced planning ahead of ourselves at any given point in time. So that's called Agile. There are applications that do this. This analog board is a nice medium-sized one. If any of you are interested in actually what this looks like at scale through a 25-person group and a volume of 50 to 80 tasks a day, I can show you pictures of that as the way I ran the data science project or data science team at LinkedIn. So this is up on my board. If you're an agent in my office, or if you're an agent who would like to come and take a look, feel free, and I'll give you a free walkthrough. The last methodology, and the other one that's more traditional, is called waterfall. And it's waterfall because you notice it kind of starts in the upper left and it trends down to the bottom right. The main thing that waterfall does is it tries to define interdependency and critical path. So these are very specific terms about waterfall. Waterfall I should address in a separate class by itself, just like Agile. It is different than Agile and it has a different goal. These kinds of things work really good if you're an agent that's in construction and you have a construction company that remodels or builds houses. This kind of a waterfall and understanding how it works is essential in a manufacturing or a building environment, and it's much better than Agile for that. So that's another methodology, the waterfall. You can also hybridize the two. One of the things that I used to teach up at Stanford in their advanced project management curriculum is hybridizing waterfall and Agile when that was considered to be something you absolutely never ever can do. And I made an argument and pioneered that yes, you can hybridize the two with goals from a waterfall at high level to meet large corporate goals or executive goals, while at the same time operating day to day in an Agile manner, doing just-in-time planning. So like I said, these two are complicated. This class is about teaching you which way to go and how to decipher a project so that you can kind of figure out which way it needs to go and how you need to plan it. And then some things to remember along the way. Everything into a single system does not work well. Sizing projects between little things you do that need to go on a list, or big things you need to do like remodel a house, or medium things you need to do like put together a project around 1323 Rosalia Avenue refurbishment and listing. That's a nice real estate project that would lend itself nicely to a combination of a list and an Agile project. So you want to be able to size, and don't try and use the same system for everything. waterfalling your daily activities is a horrible mistake, and I've seen it done. So size it. That's really important. Differentiate also between your planned and unplanned work. So what this means is there's a type of work called level of effort. Gee, Bob, what's that for you? Okay, cold calling agents is unplanned level of effort work. It's something I do daily and weekly. It's something I don't need to plan a lot around as a project. And I just kind of know I have to do it every day for X amount of time. And so, it doesn't really make lists. It makes my calendar. On the other hand, planned work has to be managed very differently. One of the projects we're doing right now in the office coming up on Halloween is Trick or Trunk. It's a great way to reach out to our communities in the COVID environment and have something fun for families and kids to do, and also give visibility to our agents and our office, and do it all in a COVID safe way. It's an interesting planned effort. It started a few weeks ago. It'll end at Halloween, and it's great for Agile. We're running it right now on the Agile board if you want to see how to do it. And remember that the results dictate the method. In the end, decide what it is you're trying to produce, what results, and then back into the quickest, cleanest way to do it, whether that's a list or creating an Agile environment, or from the first video that I did on project management, use the project management that I hybridized for real estate in a custom way in that presentation. And if you have questions about that, clearly it's okay to come ask me about those as well. So when the tasks are overwhelming, all I can say is buffer, buffer, buffer. Manage the project. So it's like this. If your goal of your project is to eat an entire planted acre, all the corn that's grown in an entire acre, how are you going to do that? There's only one way to do it. You eat it one ear at a time. You can't eat the whole thing in a single sitting. Too much corn. But you can't eat it one ear at a time. So when the tasks are overwhelming, you have to buffer the part that you can't do and focus on the part you can do so that you can make forward progress. So I'll take final questions and then we'll call it a wrap, and you can look forward to future classes in Agile and Waterfall. Questions?
Okay. We can set up the meeting. You can set up our meeting.
You can. Send me an email and a couple of availabilities and we'll schedule it up.
Okay.
Okay?
So,
I'll even put you on my things to do list.
yeah. And so I'm doing just so you all know, I'm doing the Monday morning mastermind. I'm announcing some commercial trends, and I am going to give you some for Tuesday the 13th for those trends. So
Awesome.
maybe we can get together just before that, or what's today, the 8th or 9th? So maybe we could come in on.
Are you talking about the presentation to the commercial group?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not October, that's November.
But aren't you doing one the 13th with the other, or the 15th with the other person?
Yes, I am.
On the 15th.
Yes,
So
but
maybe
it's not the same subject. It's a completely different subject.
No, that's fine. Since that's happening, I thought maybe I'll come in on Wednesday or Thursday morning.
Okay, we'll figure it out. That'll be fine.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, super. Anybody else?
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
I like to have an appointment to get started of this. I put it in the chat. When can we schedule a time so we can get this, apply what we learned and work on it?
Absolutely. Sounds great, Grace. I look forward to that.
Okay.
So let's get together. Shoot me an email with a couple of times that work for you,
Okay.
and we'll get it on a calendar. I'll send you an invite. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Perfect. No problem. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice?
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. That was good.
All right, good. I hope this was helpful. There are another couple of classes, one in waterfall, one in Agile, and probably also cover how to hybridize the two. And that'll get down into the actual methodologies you can use to get your big projects done. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. I greatly appreciate your attendance and your participation. Thanks and have a wonderful day.
We appreciate you doing it.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.